Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Ward Powell. And if you're a dentist looking to crack the code on how to grow your practice and dominate in this space, then stick around. You're in the right place. Every week, we're sitting down with some amazing dentists who are doing incredible things in their businesses. We're talking about everything from how they keep their teams loyal and dedicated to how they stay ahead of the game in this crazy, fast-changing industry. You'll hear about hacks like using virtual assistants to free up your time, strategies to make more sales with less effort, and even mind-blowing stories about patents and inventions that are changing the industry as we know it. And it's not just about growing your practice, it's also about finding out what works from a clinical perspective. Whether you're just starting or you're ready to scale to the next level, there's something here for you. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive in.
So I had no mentor. So I jumped right into dentistry, had no mentor at that practice. I was a negative millionaire at 26 years old. Because as a little kid, they're not scared of anything. We never lose. We either win or we learn.
So I would like to introduce a dentist by the name of Dipesh Patel, who has been in the field for about 12 or 13 years, and he has quite a bit of information to share with us today. I think you'll be well informed today on a broad scale of things that he has to offer here today. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Patel, for coming in and giving us some of the history, some of the challenges, some of the wins that you've had over your decade plus career. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me, Ward. I appreciate it. And I look forward to helping in whichever way I can.
Yes, absolutely. So, as I ask most dentists that come into a Wealthy Dentist Podcast, I ask them what inspired them to come into dentistry in the first place. What got them? What got you here?
Yeah, so I'm not going to have the typical dental story, probably. I would say I accidentally landed in dental is what I tell people. So I went to the University of Georgia for undergrad. And growing up, most of my family was consumed one or two ways. Half my family is some type of medical, and the other half is in some type of business, right? And growing up, my parents were in the business side of things, but they didn't do so well on the business side of things. So they kind of always push the educational side. And they say, hey, go be a doctor, be a doctor. So there's always a joke in the Indian community. Your parents want you to be one of like three things. It's a doctor, an engineer, or, you're a failure, right? Or a lawyer, right? Or you're a failure. So they always say one of those three things. And so my track of kind of growing up was, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. Half my family's doctors, extended family. So I'll just kind of go down that journey. So I went to University of Georgia as a pre-med student. And then I think it was the first year, summer of first year from first to second, I was at a family wedding and I was talking to a couple of family doctors and they were like, hey, what do you want to be? Where are you studying in school? And I was like, hey, just like you two, I want to be in a position of some sort, right? And they were like, don't. And I was like, wait a second. Where's this coming from? They're like, we don't mean don't do it if you don't like it. They're like, hey, consider some other things. And I was like, tell me what's going on. They're like, hey, we're always on call. We don't get our weekends all the time. Have you considered dentistry? This is actually what they said. I was like, no, we don't have a dentist in our family. So I was like, no, I haven't actually considered dentistry at all. Tell me more. And they're like, well, our friends that are dentists, it's the same thing as medical. So you're going to learn the same things, but they seem to have like a better lifestyle. They're not on call. And really that's all it was. They kind of said that and they're like, go shadow some dentists. So I went back home. I shadowed a dentist and asked them the question, why'd you go to become a dentist? And that dentist, I still remember distinctly saying, I grew up playing soccer and I knew I wanted to have kids and I wanted to coach my my son's soccer team if I were to have a son in the future. And I was like, well, I was playing baseball at the time. I was like, I'd love to coach my future kids' sports team as well. That was it. Right. So my reasoning for going into dentistry was going to go into medicine, got convinced of lifestyle to go into dentistry by some family doctors. And then I went off to dental school or starting that path. So I tell people, I don't think I was meant to be a dentist. I accidentally went into dentistry, fell in love with dentistry after I got there. But unlike most of my classmates, I knew from the get-go they wanted to be dentists. I can't say that was me. Right. I think those times in dental school, I was wondering, what am I doing here? So that's actually my story of how I got into dentistry.
That's an awesome story. So children.
Yeah.
So how many?
Only one, a 2-year-old little girl, right?
Okay.
People always ask what's harder, right? Is dentistry hard? Is the business side of dentistry hard? Kids are hard. At least young kids are hard. At least for me, it has been, right? I feel like in dentistry you control a lot. Business you control a little bit less. With kids you control nothing, right? And you learn to adapt to all that. And being dentists by nature, we're as a whole we're more type A, right? We like control. We like controlling the outcome of our events, and you can't really control that with a 2-year-old. So you learn to be a little bit more type B, I guess, and more flexible with kids, which is, I think, also a phenomenal blessing, because I think if you translate that into other parts of your career, you let go of a lot of things too. You're like, hey, I shouldn't be so hard on myself when things don't go in the right direction.
That's a humbling experience, a 2-year-old man, right?
Yep, it sure is.
Right. Okay, so the reason I asked, I didn't know whether she was old enough or your child was old enough to be playing baseball at this time, but I don't know. I guess you're gonna put a glove on it, throw a couple balls, right?
We'll find out. It's weird when you have a child. You're like, yeah, I didn't really care about that so much, right? You're like, if she wants to, she wants to, right? We'll see how it kind of plays out, right? But that is truly the origin story of why I got into dentistry, right? Like I wish I had a sexier story, right? Like family of dentists, traumatic thing that a dentist changed, my confidence level. Honestly, I really didn't. But it did lead me to the right profession, and I think ultimately it was the right fitting for me, because private practice in dentistry was more prevalent than it is in other industries like medicine and pharmacy and other healthcare, at least industries, because of the big boys have already kind of taken over a lot of those. Dentistry hasn't been consolidated completely yet. So I think it was the right calling for me, having that background of growing up around business, even though I was never in it. Growing up around it, I think there was that little whispering of, hey, part of me still belongs in that arena too.
That's great. That's great. So now that okay, we're going back, we're traveling back in time. So now that you've decided, okay, I'm going to become a dentist, and I think from here, so now I'm a dentist. I'm a dentist. And when you started off as a dentist, what was that like?
I was pretty young when I started. I graduated at 26, so I went kind of straight through, right? And didn't do a residency, kind of came out and, started practicing. And I won't say the corporation's name, but I went to school in Florida, and I'm from Georgia. So I live in Metro Atlanta. And so I knew I wanted to come back to Georgia. That's where I grew up for the most part. And so a TSO had recruited me to come back to work for this office. And they said all the right things. They said, hey, maybe it was all true. Maybe it didn't play out that way for them. But they said there would be a mentor doctor for me at this location. I knew the location area geographically. So, I was in South Florida, signed up for North Atlanta, and I was like, cool, I think this is going to be great. Joined that practice. That lead dentist is gone. They actually got rid of that dentist a couple of weeks beforehand, apparently. They never told me. So it was like a dumpster fire for me. I was just thrown into the wild right out of school. Right. And so I had no mentor. So I jumped right into dentistry, had no mentor at that practice. I was having to figure it out on the fly. And I think being 26, young, naive, arrogant probably at that time, I was thinking, okay, well, they're not here to support me. They're not here to help me. I have no mentor. I got to figure this out on my own. I might as well just go buy my own practice. Literally, that was the stupidity mindset of a 26-year-old. Hindsight worked out, but at that point, not something I'd advise most people to do. At 26, I jumped and bought my first practice. And that's really, I would say, where my journey really began in dentistry and in business. Age of 26. Claim to fame, I was a negative millionaire at 26 years old. $400,000 student loan debt, and then about $600,000 practice debt. And I bought the worst practice that one should buy with no experience as well on top of that. So I think necessity caused me to have to read all these books behind me too, and to finally learn and develop. So
wow, you put your feet in the fire, didn't you?
yeah, I don't, it's weird. That kid analogy plays out a little bit now, right? So I always tell people, like, sometimes the best mindset you could have is as a little kid. Because as a little kid, they're not scared of anything. The world is their oyster. They're just jumping around, doing whatever they want. There's no fear factor. But then somehow we get older and we forget to take risks. We forget to dream. We forget that, there's a lot of years ahead of us, right? And then we become risk averse too often that we never actually take leaps of faith, right? So although it was a terrible decision looking backwards because of what I bought and the age I bought it and without any experience or anybody. But I don't think I would have done it at 36. How about that? Right. I'm glad I did it when I did it because I didn't know enough to not do it. And so looking back, you count your blessings in reverse. And I'm glad I did.
So tell us about that. How long did you how did you keep the initial purchase? I mean, how did that work out? Did you wind up selling it? What were some of the bumps in the road like?
Oh man, this is always a fun story. So that first practice, 2013 is when we took over, January 2013. So let's just say 6 months out of school, and I graduated in about May or June. And so I took over, and I bought a 80% Medicaid practice in the worst street in this town that's actually pretty affluent, right? And in the first 6 months of owning that practice, everything that could have went wrong did go wrong. So, and it's hard to imagine now, but I came out of Nova, which was pretty tech heavy at the time. So we had digital things at Nova early on, right? When I came at this practice, had paper films, paper processing, paper charts. I went back in time. I didn't even know how to use some of the stuff because I was not even taught on it, right? And in that first 6 months, I think we had 3 X-ray heads, 2 of them broke. We had a film processor that broke, a compressor broke, and to make matters worse, the AC unit got stolen in the back. And then within that first year, a break-in happened because there was a pharmacy next door, so they weren't really breaking into our facility. They broke into ours to go to the pharmacy. It was a little strip mall. So anything that could have went wrong did go wrong. But I think ultimately, those were the rounds I had to kind of go through to become where I am now, right? And it created some grit. And, I learned a saying very early on that I still follow till today. And I tell our teams that. And that saying is, we never lose. We either win or we learn. Mm-hmm. Right. So every situation, if you frame it to, hey, we won, great. But if we quote unquote lost, but you learn something from it, eventually you can turn that loss into a win. Right. Mm-hmm. So all those things taught me something. Right. Taught me what kind of practice to look at in the future, what not to buy, what to evaluate, not just the inside of the practice, maybe the geographics around it, what's next to it. You start thinking about things that you would never think about because metaphorically you got punched in the face so many times, right? And you get tired of getting punched. And so I guess the lessons were endless in that first year. But the ultimate lesson was at the end of the year for me. End of that year, I got with my accountant and I was like, I don't know. I don't think we're doing that well. Right. And he's like, you're not. Right. Plain and simple. And so the practice was doing like 600,000, 650, I think. And we did the same amount that first year. Right. And we looked at the P&L, and you don't get taught this in school, right? To look at P&Ls in the business side of things. And he's like, without paying myself, I made about $60,000, $70,000. Now, remember, I was a full-time dentist practicing my own practice. The amount that I produced with my hands at the time, I would have made 100 something just working at the corporation I was working at. So technically speaking, I lost about $100,000 that year, right? And that was the biggest wake-up call that I had, that I was like, well, I bought this practice I shouldn't have bought. I can't bankrupt it because my student loans aren't going away, right? And so that was that moment where I kind of really started getting to work. I was like, I got it. There's no one's going to dig myself out of this hole that I've created for myself besides myself. And so at that point, I think I was at the age of 27, I decided I'm going to invest every penny back into myself and the practice. And that's where things started changing. So that's where, I think in Georgia, we had to average about 40 CE credits every 2 years to keep our license. I was averaging about 120 to 150 every 2 years. And so I was gone every chance I got on a CE course for business, leadership, or clinical dentistry for about 3-4 years. And the overall effect of that is when you learn something and you implement it, and you learn it and you implement it, naturally things are just going to grow, right? And then that got me exposed to reading all these books. And, I think there's podcasts like yours and books that you see behind me. These are mentors in a box, I call it, right? And these became my mentors in a box that helped me get through the tough times that eventually developed me as an individual on the clinical side and me as a business owner as well. So,
oh wow, what an interesting story. So you managed to get yourself out of a sticky situation 4 or 5 years out. Then you had one business. So what happened after that? I mean, now that you find yourself in a commanding kind of position.
Yeah, so I think it naturally evolves. So I just out there, I'm now the CEO of a dental group that I started, and we have 8 locations in Atlanta. I didn't start out wanting to buy multiple practices. That was never never the agenda when I started. Like I wasn't smart enough to write on paper, this is my business plan, and look out that's what it turned out to. What happened is, as I fell in love with the self development part of running my first practice and me becoming a dentist, that naturally manifested into what else can I do, right? And that what else next was the next challenge. And that next challenge for me was, hey, can I buy a second practice? So then we bought a second practice. And then can I run that second practice without me there with through leadership and management and development? And that's a new set of challenges. And that challenge happened. And you start conquering some of these challenges. And, in the entrepreneurial world, it's like that dopamine high that we sometimes get. We get the high, not from the end result. We get more of that high from that development. And a lot of it's just that personal development. So indirectly, led to a second practice. And then little by little, one of my roommates from dental school, he bought his practice. I had consulted him to buy his practice, and he got his practice. And then one day we're just in there. We had very similar philosophies about life and family, and we just decided to join forces. We're like, hey, he had his one, I had my two, and we're like, should we just create our own group, based on our principles of what we believe in, our core values? And well, yeah, let's try it out. It's kind of fun, right? So then, next thing you know, we bought another one, or bought another one slash created some. We're de novo in acquisition. So we've done both and merged some. And fast forward to 2025 we're in. Neither one of us are in the chair. I function as a CEO. He functions as the chief dental officer now. And we have an 8 location dental group in Atlanta with 17 associates. And, we've done well over the last couple of years, right? Through all the mistakes, but we made the Inc. 5000 list a couple of years in a row and stuff. So it's been kind of cool, right? It's that entrepreneurial high, I guess, that we got. But I always warn people, like, if you do it altruistically for the right reasons, you'll keep doing it. If you do it to sometimes chase the money, it doesn't necessarily work out. Just full transparency, I probably make less now, not being chair side, than I used to make when I was chair side, owning a couple practices. So it's not really about the money. And I truly mean that. It's really about the kind of the high you get from the challenge and the things that you can create that other people benefit from now. So
That is so wonderful, man. So not only did you, decide to go into dentistry as as it, thinking family first, right? Then you get into the thick of dentistry and says it's not about the money, it's about helping other people. Man, I mean, how beautiful is that? So we know that you speak, or maybe they don't know, but I know that you speak on a national level. Uh, to what extent? Can you share that with us?
yeah, so I mean, obviously, when you kind of grow, you go to these conferences, and once in a while, people want to kind of hear your story. So, outside of like podcasts I've been on, I'm part of the Dental Entrepreneur Organization, and then they started that's a straight entrepreneur organization for dentists that want to grow their business.
Yeah.
And we joined it in 2019, and it was instrumental to our company's growth. Right, I had mentors through that kind of taught us a lot, and then they've kind of changed a little bit where they have some coaching and stuff. So they asked me if I would coach people that are now signing up for them. So now, I'm on the coaching front a little bit there. And then that's led to, speaking engagements and other things that kind of come with it. But yeah, so I'm out there a lot. My calendar's kind of booked, right? But I try to keep a balance of it, right? Because that family first thing I was telling you about, our DNA of our organization, Blueprint Smiles, is based upon that. If you look at assurance, it's work, life, thrive, and it doesn't say balance, right? And me and my business partner, our idea was, some people are always like, hey, my work is great, but my life sucks. And some people are like, my life's great, but my work sucks. Or they're always talking about a balance between the both. And we were always like, hey, what if we could hack both? What if both can be great, right? Where you could be successful in both arms without sacrificing either. And that became the thesis behind our company and our group. And I think over the last couple of years, we've been able to kind of do it relatively well. And we've attracted a lot of doctors that wanted to be in that kind of model. And it's kind of cool to see people come on board from other situations that didn't work out. And now they're like, yeah, what you guys said looked like it looked too rosy to be true. And then they're with the 6 months in, they're like, and this is awesome, right? It can exist. Now, I tell people it exists because they work hard and they follow protocols that we've kind of developed over time. Nothing gets around hard work. If you do it and you do it correctly, I do believe you can have your cake and eat it too, to some degree.
I agree. I agree. So, wow, it's been already challenges that we talked about, and we talked about your successes, man. It's just one after the other. So when you speak to different groups throughout the country, is there any specific areas that they tend to bring you on to speak about most?
I would say for the most part, a lot of it is people trying to buy their first practice or kind of thinking about, or there's in general, like based on your kind of your podcast a little bit, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. How can I do better? How can I make a little bit more? Right. And it all goes back to the same premise that you hinted at a little bit earlier. If you take care of your end result, which is as a dentist is patients, the end product of that is you doing well, right? The indirect result of that is you doing well. When you start owning a business and you take care of your people, which for me now is my dentist, my assistants, and my fronts, when we take care of them and they take care of the people because you take care of them really well, the result is the business doing well. So it always has to start altruistically that way. Like you're there to help somebody else and not looking for an exchange in the moment. It just naturally is a byproduct of it, right? So I would tell dentists that want to do well, like let's say they're making a couple 100,000 or less than a couple 100,000 and they really have student loans and debt. Don't put your money anywhere at all besides yourself, right? And what I mean by that is not yourself and your house and your car and jewelry. I'm not saying don't enjoy your fruits of your labor. Invest in your clinical skill set. The biggest ROI as a dentist is your two hands. And if you take $10,000 and take a course that teaches you something you don't know how to do, that has a multiplier effect for the rest of your career. So on the clinical side, very early, as I mentioned, I was taking 120 something CE hours every couple of years. I mean, within my first 3 years out of school, I did everything from molar endo to Mohs extractions to implant dentistry, all the technology I invested in. That had the multiplying effect for my practice because as my skill set got better, the practice do better. And then there was an indirect result. But even if you don't own a practice, the indirect result is better patient outcomes. You're able to treat more people more comfortably. You end up getting rewarded for that, right? So I would say as an associate, develop your skill set through and through, over and over. Make sure you keep putting money into yourself. That is the ultimate best ROI. I don't care what financial advisors tell you. There is no better ROI than that, right? Then when you tap that and you have some recreational income, then you can talk to financial advisors or whoever you want to about where to put your money afterwards. But for associates, I tell them that. For practice owners, it flips a little bit. So the second you own a practice, not only should you develop yourself, you should develop your team at the fastest pace you can develop your team. So if you have an associate, mentor them, get them better, let them feel accomplished, right? Get your hygienists more accomplished, your fronts more accomplished, get them to earn more money in your business because they can earn more money as your business grows. And that's how you get there, right? So invest in them. It does have a ripple effect of it, right? So for the single practice owners, that's usually what I tell them, right? Invest in that and understand your P&L when you get to that point, right? So just don't base it on we produce this much, the bank account shows this much, I must be doing well. Learn to have some financial literacy, at least at the baseline level of a P&L. Get a timely, read it, and see how well you're doing with you as a line item in the P&L, right? All too often, I'll talk to a single owner doctor and they'll go, hey, I'm 30% margins, 35% margins. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's look at the P&L. And I'll look at the P&L. It's easy to be 35% margins as an owning dentist when you don't pay yourself anything because technically most dentists pay themselves 30%, right? So if you look at those margins, it should be 30 something percent, right? Because you haven't paid yourself anything. So I tell them to learn financial literacy on the P&L side at least, so you can make better decisions and run your business like a business. Don't run it necessarily as a nice job that you created for yourself. Is what most people do.
Yeah, exactly. So if you actually having to be there, it is a job, right?
Yep.
It is a job. And so now you've worked yourself to a position where now you're the CEO. You're not really like you gave up the chair. How many years ago?
2 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, yep, just 2 years ago, I gave up the chair completely. But for the first 10 years, I was 4 days in the chair and running the group. So it was like two jobs, technically, it's like for a while. So,
Hmm. Okay. So then, I mean, I know you know a lot about technology. Um, what is some of your like takeaways for the young dentists, or even some of the veterans that are out there that need to take a look at?
so which technology to look at, or
Yeah,
in general about technology?
in general, in general.
So in general about technology, we're very tech heavy in our organization. So I consider any tech, whether it's AI or just traditional tech, is something that can enhance human behavior or humans. So if I can do something that takes me 30 minutes of time right now, and I can use tech to do it, now it can take me 10 minutes of time. That's enhancing me using tech. So there's an ROI with that time element. So tech to me is there to replicate or duplicate time of some sort. It's more of a time duplicator. So I highly, I mean, obviously encourage everyone. You have to stay up with the times, right? Your patients are expecting it. Your teammates are then expecting it. And if you don't get there, then eventually you will get left behind to some degree. And even if you don't necessarily get left behind in a theoretical sense or an actual sense, in a theoretical sense, you'll get left behind because the adaptation for your patients won't be there. They'll start seeing those things. They're not getting the best care they can. And you're actually wasting, I call it wasting time, but you're utilizing time incorrectly then, where you could be treating more patients if you use that tech at the same time.
Mm, mm. So in terms of a specific piece of equipment, anything out there that kind of grabs your eye and says, "Hey, this is what it's going to not only happen and make save me time for the day, but it's going to this is the technologies that's going to be used for long term into the future." Are there any pieces of
That, yeah, there's a lot, right? There's a lot, and yeah, so there's a lot. I'll speak to some of it that we've adopted, right? That
Okay.
we have, and when we talk about adopt, we're very tech heavy in our organization, which means we invest a lot in technology, and not just for our clinical side. Everybody, every teammate of ours has some form of tech. So I'll start with the back end tech. So people are familiar now with 3D scanners, right? So instead of taking impressions, the 3D scanners, better outcome, faster outcome for patients, right? And then there's mills and stuff. I'm not on the mill train. If you like it, it's great. 3D printing's now there as well. So on the clinical side, there's that. But the clinical side that I really like is the technology on the AI front on the clinical side. So there's, I'm agnostic when it comes to these companies. So there's Pearl, Videa, Overjet, Denti AI. So these are like the four big ones that I know of on the clinical AI side. So when I talk clinical AI, I'm talking about it reading X-rays for you at a 99% accuracy. Yes, there's some false positives to help you diagnose better and to present better. I think that's the wave of dentistry anyway, right? So we use one of the companies in our organization. What it helps our clinicians do is it helps them not miss things. Yes, does it lead to some false positives? Sure, right? They still have to make a clinical judgment. Is that a cavity or not? But what it does is it helps them at least look at it without missing it. And then they can say yes or no to it. So that technology is really good because it speeds up your diagnosis time, makes sure you don't underdiagnose, and is built in a way where patients can understand it as well, right? So it becomes a tool to present to patients. So I would say that's huge, right? The hot craze that's on the technology side is the front AI stuff right now, right? We're early adopters in that as well. And so I'm talking about more of voice AI of some sort where you call one of our offices. If one of our humans doesn't pick up, AI picks up. And AI is actually talking to you like a human, scheduling like a human, and having a conversation like a human, right? So, that helps your marketing side out. That helps you not missing any patients that call your office. That eventually, when developed correctly, can lead to needing less humans in the front as well, right? Because at 24/7, you call one of our offices, AI is picking up and they're scheduling you in real time because they can read our schedule. So all this is out there, right? And so it on the business side allows you to get faster, better, smarter with less humans. And we all know post COVID, the labor market kind of all flipped upside down, right? And then as a result, inflation happened for the ones that still wanted to work. and there wasn't as many bodies. So a couple things happened. There wasn't enough people that wanted to work, and the ones that wanted to work could ask for a premium now. So all that did is it ate away people's margins, right, on their P&L. So the only way to circumvent that is you got to produce more with less bodies. Kind of the only way around that is using technology to speed up things, right? So you can see one extra patient throughout the day because you use all the clinical stuff in the back, or need one less body up front because AI can do some of the task, right? So I would tell you, since this is a dental podcast, right? I would tell you that there's a little bit of AI and tech in every aspect of the patient journey now in dentistry, whether you've seen it or not, from the phone call to robots helping to place implants to technologies checking out the patient without intervention at all and sending a claim to insurance, claim getting paid and posted to your ledger without human intervention. It's all out there already, right? Now, whoever leads the market's going to be different. We'll find out who comes, actually figures it all out. But they're all out there to make the task work at your office a lot easier to do, which you as a business owner will make it more rewarding for you because you don't need as many.
Well, I think your explanation was well said. I might say that just the technology. I've never had this much technology conversation. I mean, we talk about technology, but for you to give that type of presentation about technology and how it's going to affect every little part of the business, man, it kind of adds some extra light onto, what to expect in the future as a dentist, as a business person. I mean, this whole idea of speaking to AI, the AI speaking to the third party payers, if you will. I know that could be a problem, but for them to have a 90 plus accuracy rating on their thoughts of
right.
whether they should pay for this or not it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, and it's scary, right? For people that are a little bit slower on the adoption, I'm not saying you have to be the first to market to adopt these things. I'm saying you want to stay up with times a little bit. The unfortunate part is, I'm turning 39 soon, right? So I now feel older. Like my nephews, they know how to use all the gadgets like I used to use back in the day. So I can't even adopt as quickly as I used to like technology myself. But everyone must at least stay with the current times, because when and I don't know the exact term behind this, when PCs and stuff came out, the doubling effect of technology took a couple years sometimes, right? So let's say when it first came out, it was 4 gigs of RAM, and then to get to 8 took a couple years for computing power to get that point where it became that and the price gets fast. Unfortunately, it depends on which side of the coin you're on, AI is doubling at a speed every month-ish or faster, right? So technology is doubling at that pace. So, that's like the equivalent of me saying, you looking at that first PC that came out in like the 80s, right? And you look at the PC that came out last year. That gap, so many iterations happen to get that gap. That will happen in months now, right? In that front. So things are just doubling so quickly. That's why TVs went down in cost over time so quickly, even though the technology got better and better, because as that happens, then competition happens, price of goods go down, things like that happens, right? So, but that being said, that means you could be left in the dust pretty quickly too then, right? So you have to at least stay current. Doesn't mean you have to adopt it. You have to know that it exists, do your research, and when your company's ready, then possibly look into it, right? I'm not for or against anybody doing it. I'm just saying I'm for you learning, right? How about that? I'm for you learning. You decide when you want to adopt it or if you need to adopt it.
Okay, and as a CEO, putting that technology cap on to say whether or not you want to deal with a certain piece of equipment to help you along the way. How do you go about vetting your equipment? I mean, what kind of process do you take when you do that? I mean, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, so it's changed, right? So it's changed when I had a single practice to now 8, right? So it's changed. So and so everybody's gonna be in a different cycle. So when you're at a single practice and you're the single doctor, owner, operator, you have a quicker adoption curve. So that means I could test out something today, play with it for a month. If it sucks, trash it, pick another one out, right? Because I'm only affecting my 8 teammates at my office in that database. We have 90 something teammates now, or close to 100 teammates. If I integrate one thing, well, it affects 90 to 100 people now, right? So I got to be a little bit more methodical and slower at adaptation, which is a blessing for the people that are smaller, because you can actually move faster than we can move at, and we can move faster than the big DSOs can move at, right? And they'll say that to you as well. They can't move as quickly anymore because how much, if it breaks, how detrimental it could be for an organization. So keep that in mind. Depends on where you are in your trajectory. But for me as a CEO in this trajectory, I'm always at conferences of some sort. I'm always reading something about the digital front, and I'm demoing a lot of products all the time for my team, right? So, and I'm talking about anything from clinical to your front to name it. If it encompasses for dentistry, I'm probably looking at it. But a lot of it is just like you do in school, you're researching. So as a CEO, half my job is just research. And I'm just researching and taking notes until I think it fits what it fits for our organization. So what I've gotten better at that I wasn't so good at, years back, was you could get sold on the high of the technology. Everybody has something cool. And it is cool, but you must see how and if it integrates into what you do really well. So if Ward, you had a dental practice and I had a dental practice, we both of us could have a $2 million dental practice each, both in its own right successful. But you going to market, me going to market may be totally different. Meaning you might cater towards a certain type of dentistry, while I cater towards a different type of dentistry. You run your operations different. So that means our business model is different. So that means there might be one technology that you're like, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread, right? And I might go, I agree, but I can't do it. You might go, why not? Because it just doesn't fit our model. We don't do things a certain way where it could work for us. I'd have to change everything, which may not be worth it. So I tell people, when you look at that technology, just don't look at the technology holistically of what they say it does. You want to see how it actually integrates or enhances your workflow, your blueprint, for all pun intended, because our company is Blueprint, right? Your blueprint for your organization. And then that's how I kind of look at technology through our lens.
That's great. That's a wonderful way to assess whether or not I'm glad you said that. I mean, it's different areas, different strokes, if you will, for different folks, depending on where you are as a business. You don't know whether or not this is going to be good or not for your organization. So how many dentists do you have, and how many?
We about 17 full-time dentists.
Okay, so 17 dentists. You're going to have what, about 40 or 50 hygienists? So I mean,
no, not really. So it kind of goes to that model that we're talking about, right? Like, so we changed our model post-COVID a little bit, right? When we kind of saw that hygiene was a little bit scared. A lot of them were exiting the industry because the aerosol effect, and there weren't enough hygiene schools coming out. So that goes back to the market research you kind of do. Sitting in my shoes now, like, you start realizing there's not enough hygiene schools. There's not enough hygienists coming out. There's more retiring, and a lot of them retired early. So there's becoming a shortage of hygiene, which just means that the cost of hygienists is going to go up, right? To try supply and demand, right, curve. So it's going to be more expensive. So we, as a model, changed to more dentists and hygienists. So the typical dental model is one doctor, then one hygienist, one doctor, two hygienists, maybe one doctor, three hygienists, and then a second doctor. So we went to one doctor, one hygienist, two doctors, one hygienist, two doctors, two hygienists, a doctor before hygiene. So we rarely have an office that has more hygienists than doctors.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So we kind of flipped it, which means you have to change your whole operational process, way of thinking and operating, but it works well for what we do really well. So we attract a certain type of doctor, and most of them are happy with how we do things. And so it just depends on the blueprint, right, of what your organization needs. So in most typical settings, you're right, 17, it would be 17 doctors, 34 to 40 hygienists at least, right? Ours is about 17, 14 right now. We're actually adding some more hygienists. So
isn't that interesting? So what do the extra I mean, now that's taking me somewhere else. So where, I mean, what do the you getting extra dentists as opposed to hygiene? How does that create a an advantage for your organization and your model? What?
So, yeah, so on like the traditional GP model was built on new patients going through hygiene kind of working them up, and doctor doing kind of treatment. Our model is more based on our doctor being where new patients are seen first instead. So our doctors are where new patients are seen first, and our doctors are actually willing to do the cleaning on that new patient, right? And then when the patients get into recall in 6 months out or whatever for their normal recall visits, that's when we start bringing on hygienists to do the recall visits, right? And we start adding on the hygiene days then. So because we don't put new patients on hygiene first and we put them on doctor side, and our doctors are willing to do that cleaning, we're a high same day model, which means we tell our doctors, if the patient come in and you have time to do their cleaning and failings, we want to get somebody in as soon as possible, get them healthy as soon as possible, and get them onto a recall system because they're already healthy as soon as possible. That's our clinical model. So for that to be our clinical model, that means I got to get them in as soon as possible, today or tomorrow, right? And our doctors must be willing to do the patient's cleaning with their failings that they can the same day because they get them healthier as soon as possible. So they're not booking them out. So that means they get healthier quicker in our model, and we can do more same day treatment. So that's why we need a little bit more doctors and hygienists technically up front. And then as we start growing that office, then yes, as the database builds, then you need as much hygienists on the back end.
Oh, I see. Because I was going to say the long-term effect. What is the long-term effect on the patient if you don't have a specialist like a hygienist that's really doing the deep, the deep diving on those teeth and gums that.
Yeah, well, I think what you have to remember is doctors are trained to do cleanings, right? They are trained to do deep cleanings. Everything hygienist does, doctors, it's under most doctors' supervision in most states. So the doctor knows how to do it. Somewhere along the line in school, we had to do it, and then we get out of school, and we're like, I don't want to do it anymore, right?
Right.
And so we almost had to go backwards, right? So I told our company, when dentistry first happened years ago, before our hygiene got developed, there was plenty of dental offices. There was never a hygienist. It was just a dentist, their assistant, maybe a front doing everything, right?
Yeah.
And it was just then later on that hygienists came around, and then dentists didn't do hygiene. I think we kind of need to shift back to that a little bit, right? Because of the shortage of hygienists. And our doctors agreed because we told our doctors, I'm like, look, if you are going to wait for a hygienist and we can't find as many as you need for your office or we can't afford it, then the end result is you're going to have less new patients. That means you're going to be less productive. You're going to be less wealthy. I'll use the term for the wealthy dentist, right? Because then patients, when you call the office and you have to say, hey, our next available new patient visit's a month from now. Well, consumerism was changing as well last time I checked. And consumers don't like waiting either. And consumers are patients, and they drive a dentist, whether you're an owner or not, they drive your livelihood, right? If they don't come to you and wait for you, then you're not producing any money, and because you have no one to take care of. Mm-hmm. So to keep that in mind, when we saw that a consumerism change was happening through Instagram, Netflix, all the instant everything generation that came about, but that started applying towards dentistry afterwards as well, where patients were calling and new patient, they want to come in today or tomorrow. It's rare that you could say, hey, my next visit's 3 weeks from now, and they're waiting. Now, you can be in a small remote town, they have no other options, different story. Demographics do play a factor in that, like where you live. But where we are in Metro Atlanta, well, there's dime a dozen dental offices.
Yeah.
They're calling the next one, right? So
yes. Wow. This has been like a crash course in particularly the technology piece. I mean, just everything, how to, to set your models for your practice. And I mean, this has been great. Is there any information? I know there's plenty of information that we could probably talk about, but is there anything that you'd like to say to the listening public that we've missed so far at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's different based on where you are in the trajectory, right? But I think one thing is pretty consistent that helped me, at least as an individual, and It's defining what success looks like to you, right? And truly defining what success looks like to you. So I have a big board over here. So when I look at it, it's me reminding myself all the time. And for our definition of success, or my personal definition of success, is having the time to do the things that make me genuinely happy. And I underline time and genuinely, right? And because ultimately, when I wrote that down, that was me in my most neutral moment saying that this is what I consider success, to keep my North Star active. So I don't chase that shiny object syndrome, that next office just because to say I have another one, or I don't chase back going into the chair because it can earn me X amount of more dollars, right? To me, and that's okay if that's what you want. I don't judge anybody for it. But my definition of success was the time. I wanted time to do the things that make me genuinely happy, not artificially happy when I thought it was going to make me happy, etc. Right? It's not that that car was going to make me happy or whatever, right? I know now genuinely what makes me happy. And that changes over time, but I know for the most part what makes me happy. And I needed the time to do those things that make me happy. So that means it comes with some other sacrifices. Sometimes it was my chair side income. Sometimes it's not taking on another practice. Sometimes it's not having a weekend when I'm going to a conference, right? But those things make me happy. And I would say everybody should get clear on what success means to them so they follow their own North Star, because there's too many shining objects out there, too many distractions, too much Instagram, too much of that where you can feel like you're never enough, right? And in reality, guys, like anybody says, you're here, you're listening, you're already doing something more than 99% of the population if you're listening right now, right? So you are probably already enough. You just don't know it. Create your definition of success, stick to that definition, ignore the noise, put your head down and work towards it. And ultimately, when you get closer to it, you'll look back and go, hey, I didn't waste time. I actually like where I landed, whether it has millions of dollars in bank account or not. Doesn't matter. I know rich people that are completely depressed, and I know poor people that are completely depressed. The money doesn't make that much of a difference. And that money helps when you did it the right way, the way you told yourself you really wanted to do it. Because then you can look back and go, that was a good journey. I don't have any regrets, right? And so that's the constant theme I kind of remind people of, because a lot of people, as I'm on like podcasts or something, they want to go, oh, I always hear this a lot. You know, that seems so cool that you guys have like 8 offices, whatever, right? You know? And I go, sure, it is, and it's not. And they go, what does that mean? I'm like, there's some really good days that you would probably want to be doing what I do. And there's some days that you go, why would you ever sign up to do what you do? Right? And vice versa to whoever I'm talking to. So just know that it isn't always as good as it looks on podcasts or what we're talking about here. It just has to be good for what you want to do. And if you do that, then most days and not, you go, I kind of enjoy what I'm doing, and I consider that success. So
Yeah, defining your idea of success. That's awesome. I mean, 39 years young with 100 years of wisdom, man. You packed it. I mean, like, just thank you so much, Dr. Patel, for joining us this afternoon and giving us 1,000 nuggets. We're not going to say shiny because that might. We're just gonna call them nuggets. They can be whatever color or shiny you want it to be, or dull you want it to be. But man, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this little talk, and I'm sure people, when they listen to it, they're gonna say the same. If someone wanted to reach out to you just to ask you a question or two, is there email or something that they could use to connect with you?
yeah, so the best 2 ways to connect with me is LinkedIn, number one.
Okay. Okay.
So if you find me on LinkedIn, it's my first name, last name, or I'm associated with Blueprint Smiles. If you go, or you can, it's my first name, Dipesh, Dipesh, at blueprintsmiles.com. So LinkedIn, or that's my direct email. Feel free to reach out. I'll try to get back to you if I can. So
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
no problem. Thanks for having me, Ward.
The Wealthy Dentist podcast is built on connections, opportunities, and meaningful conversations that help jumpstart careers and boost the ROI on your business. Is there a topic you're passionate about, or someone in the dental community who should share their story with us? We want to hear from you. Email your suggestions to the Wealthy Dentist Podcast at gmail.com, and let's create content that informs, inspires, and uplifts the dental world. Your ideas could spark our next big conversation. Let's make it happen. I'm Ward Powell, your host at the Wealthy Dentist Podcast, thanking you for being a part of our journey.